Hey, so in this demo we are going to look at function calling and planners with semantic kernel. Before we jump into Visual Studio, we'll just take a quick skim through the accompanying blog, and this blog will give you an end-to-end walkthrough of what function calling is, how does it work under the hood, what is a planner in semantic kernel, and how planners use function calling to orchestrate AI integrations. I won't go into too much detail about the inner workings of each of the processes because we'll see more of that in Visual Studio. But if we just take a quick look at this sequence diagram here, from left to right, we've got the user who makes a request to an agent that has semantic kernel integrated with it. That request is trying to make a booking, and what happens is the agent will relay the message onto the OpenAI model, or any other model for that matter that supports function calling. At the same time, any serialized functions in the chat history that the agent is aware of is also sent over to the AI model, and that lets the AI model know what functions are available for use to satisfy a particular request. If the AI model deems that it's necessary to invoke a function to perform a particular request, it will relay that request onto the function that exists within the solution. The results are then augmented with any text that the model thinks is necessary, and then that response is passed back to the user. We've got more detailed steps about that in here, and without going into all of it, I've got 5 or 6 examples, okay? Key concepts in the examples are we have an agent that has a booking plugin and a complaints plugin. The booking plugin contains 2 native functions, one to get the next available date and one to perform a booking or book an appointment. And the complaints plugin lets a person file a complaint, and it lets a manager fetch all complaints. And we can see some of the business rules here. So enough of the overview. What we'll do now is we'll dive out of the blog and jump into Visual Studio. So here we're in Visual Studio, and what we can see here in the program.cs file is a very basic agent. And lines 29 and 30, we import the booking plugin and the complaints plugin that we talked about in the blog. And the important part here, or another important part, is between lines 34 and 38, setting the tool call behavior enum to auto invoke kernel functions tells semantic kernel to make use of the planning capability that ships with the SDK. And what that means is that as an incoming request is sent from a user to this agent, it will discover any plugins or native functions that it feels are suitable to satisfy that particular request. Now the LLM plays its part in that also, and we'll see that in a little minute. Between lines 40 and 44, we add a meta prompt or a system prompt to the agent to let it know how to behave. And importantly, we give it some precise instructions in the sense that we say if the person says I'm a manager, the agent will let them access the fetch all complaints feature within the complaints plugin. We can scroll down a little bit further here and we can see we've just got a loop to let the user interact with the agent. And that's no different from some of the other examples that we've seen in earlier demos. Just for completeness, we will open the booking plugin, and we can see here between lines 32 and 66 there are 3 native functions, and then just above there we've got some private variables to handle a list of available dates that a user can book, and we've also got a list of booked dates. So when a user performs a booking, an entry is added to the booked variable. An important thing about this booking plugin is that these functions are only accessed by a customer. We can open up the complaints plugin. We can see here what we have is an option to file a complaint. Now that lets a customer file a complaint, and then down between lines 29 and 31 we have an option to fetch complaints. We can see we've got the kernel function in description annotation that says lets the hotel manager fetch all complaints, and that just gives the AI model a little bit of a steer as to who should be able to access this native function. So what we can do is we can jump back out into the program.cs. We can see up here we've got the plugins injected between lines 29 and 30. We've got the meta prompt, and now we can just start the conversation. So we'll run this application. We'll make it a little bit bigger, and we can say something like, I want a booking, please. Under the hood, the agent is going to use semantic kernel's planning feature to discover which native functions and plugins are suitable for this particular request. And we can see here the assistants came back and said the next available date is on the 14th of July. Now what it's also done is checked a list of the available dates that were created in the private variables that we just saw. We can say yes please, and we've now got the booking confirmed, right? Another thing that we could try, and this is where it gets a little bit more involved, we could say I want to make a booking. After that, I would like to file a complaint. So two things going on here. We're expressing two particular intents. The first one is you'd like to make a booking, but after that we want to file a complaint. Now this agent is going to have to figure out, does the user have access to file a complaint? It's going to have to figure out when the next available booking is, and it's done that right now. So we can, the 14th has been taken away from the list of available bookings. The 15th is now available and it's asking us, do we want to proceed? We will say yes please. And this is where it gets interesting, right? So it's gonna confirm the booking, but it's also figured out that, well, actually there's still one open thread or task that I have to perform. Important part as well is that we haven't coded any of this logic up, okay? The planner capability within Semantic-Kernel plus the LLM has figured this out for us. So what we will see is, please tell me about the complaint. We could say something like, my room was cold. And under the hood, that complaint will be stored. We get some generative text from the AI model that lets us know the complaint's been filed and it will be dealt with. Now, if you remember back to some of the business logic, there was a rule that said a manager should be able to fetch all complaints. We'll try this from the customer's perspective and see what happens. And we get a message that says you actually don't have access to do this, okay? Now we override this and say I am a manager and you list all complaints please. And here we get a different response. It says we've got a complaint here that says the room was cold. So quite a lot going on there, right? Business logic being validated, information being sent over from the client and stored into variables under the hood that belongs to each of the kernel functions, and then validation being performed across roles and permissions, and all of that came from the native functions and the system prompt or the meta prompt. We can stop the application, and just for completeness, we will take another look at the booking plugin, and we'll see that the logic here is very primitive really, but we accept the date. It checks to see if that date's available. If it is, it will remove it from the list of dates that are available because they've just performed the booking, and then it adds that date to the booked list. Similarly, if we go to the complaints plugin, we can see we've got the file a complaint. Again, it just takes the parameter, adds it to the complaints property, and then we get the confirmation that it's been filed. We can look at fetch all complaints, and it literally just enumerates through the list of complaints. So that's been a very quick run through of how automatic function calling can be implemented using semantic kernel. And in this demo, we've seen how one or more plugins can be used by an agent and LLM integration coupled with the planning component. We've also seen how Semantic-Kernel's planning component coupled with bookings and multiple plugins can be used to implement automatic function calling. You can find out more information about this demo and code by viewing the accompanying blog at jamiemaguire.net.